The Eagles selected Penn State running back Miles Sanders with the 53rd overall pick in this year's NFL draft, which ironically enough is the same pick they used to draft LeSean McCoy back in 2009. It's the highest round the Eagles have taken a running back since then, and excitement surrounding the pick is high, but there are some questions. The biggest of all being, what exactly are the Eagles getting in Miles Sanders, and how does he fit into the current rotation? My name is LeSean Jenkins, and that's what we'll be trying to answer today in this episode of Eagles Film Room. Before we get started though guys, make sure you hit subscribe and leave a like if you're new around here and enjoy this sort of content. We'll have film rooms coming out for each of the Eagles rookies and maybe the undrafted free agents as well. But if you still want more, you can get daily content from myself and all of our writers at phillysportsnetwork.com. Now I said the word ironic when comparing Sanders to LeSean McCoy, and that's because not only were the two selected with the same exact pick, but they're almost the exact same type of running back. Both are 5'11", and there's just 1 pound separating the two, and they have a very similar type of skill set. Does Miles Sanders have the ceiling to become a LeSean McCoy 2.0? Let's find out. We're going to start off with balance, a word commonly associated with LeSean McCoy, and for good reason. But if you turn on any Miles Sanders game, one of the first things you'll notice is how he's able to bounce off of contact like a rubber band, and that's largely because look at his pad level. They're always above his knees, he's always driving forward. He may not be the most powerful runner in the world, but this is a trait that certainly helps him when driving north up the field. Sanders can drop his hips, can drop his shoulders, and leap out of those cuts, which is what makes him so explosive. But it's that balance. From the waist down, he's built like an 18-wheeler or a Terminator, but he runs like a gazelle. He's so light on his feet, and that's how he's so slippery when dodging tacklers and gliding his way through the trenches. Now, there is some work to be done in the open space, but we'll get to that later. When it comes to vision and breaking through the hole like we saw just then, Sanders is among the best in his class because he can explode out of those cuts. It is rare to see a running back get so low and then leap out of them like a salmon out of cold water. Is absolutely ridiculous. And here's another great example. It's not just about what the legs and the waist do. Watch the head on this play. The head turns right before his actual body, so he's already looking for that hole. At that point, he knows, he's anticipated where the flow of the play is going. He cuts inside, then makes another cut by shifting his weight from one leg to another. Again, it's a rare thing to see in a running back, and it's almost now that you see running backs who are so elusive and electric or who are thunderous powerhouses. There's no in between, and Miles Sanders is one of those rare running backs who can tick both boxes adequate. And I think I'd be safe in saying that watching some of these plays will remind you of LeSean McCoy. It's that human joystick, like you're constantly wiggling the right analog stick on a game of Madden to see how many times you can shift your player around before he gets tackled. That's what Miles Sanders does. Now, this can hurt him. Sometimes he tries to do too much, but look at that angle. Both feet are almost pointing towards the sideline. He's crunched up into a ball and leaps out of it straight into contact. That is just incredible amounts of athleticism from the running back, and if you put him in a situation where he's following pull blocks or on an inside zone scheme or potentially even with a fullback in play, that jumps off the screen because look at how low he gets there. Following a block, the defender can't see what he's doing, and he can just break the other way like it's nobody's business. The change of direction this man has is absolutely insane. Now, sometimes he can get a case of smallwooditis, where he runs into blocks or doesn't really see that second level and anticipate the step ahead of the step ahead. However, it's a rare circumstance. I do liken Miles Sanders to a slightly more electric Wendell Smallwood. Smallwood has become this back that can do a bit of everything. He can catch the ball now after a career high in receiving yards last year. He runs with a bit more aggression, lowers his pads into contact, but he doesn't do any particular area outstandingly well. But because Miles Sanders is that much of a better athlete, because he's that much more explosive, he can kind of take some of those flaws, like maybe running into those blocks sometimes and get away with it. Like here, that's a dead end. That would be a dead end for Wendell Smallwood. However, the patience, his ability to leap back outside and keep that momentum churning forward gives him a real sense of opportunity that maybe Wendell Smallwood wouldn't at the NFL level, and that's what he's going to bring to the table. It's taking Wendell Smallwood's role, in my opinion, and blowing it up. You've got a workhorse back in Jordan Howard. You've got someone that can be active in the passing game in Corey Clement that's still a bit more of a physical runner. This is much more of a pick your poison type of running back. We'll see an example here. We're going to see a protection slide. They're going to pull the tight end to take out that outside defensive end. The idea is Sanders is going to run a counter. Now what happens is the defense blitz. They smother this area, and straight away Miles Sanders does is sidestep, and it's a lateral quickness, and then he cuts inside, turns a dead play into a positive play. You won't see that from many of the other Eagles running backs on this roster. Now, I mentioned earlier about those legs that don't stop, and he drives to a dead end and still drives like Roadrunner on the spot, and then pushes outside for a breakaway run. You don't see many breakaway rushes from this man at Penn State, but again, he only had 278 carries, so I don't really know what you can expect. And what you don't expect is someone to have weaknesses but still be willing, and this is what stands out to me here. For instance, he's not the strongest runner. You'd like to see a bit more power from him, but even when lowering his pads into contact and ducking that helmet in a heartbeat, there's a willingness to do so. He's not going to shy away from contact like a couple of the Eagles running backs have done in previous years. The attitude is right, and only 278 carries. The only thing I would say that stands out as something that can be worked on massively at the next level are those one-on-one matchups, whether it's a corner, a safety, or a linebacker. The minute it's one-on-one on a screen or he's in the open field, things can get a little bit hectic. He can't manipulate defenders as he'd like to, and although hurdling is great and cute, sometimes he tries to do too much with the ball like we saw just there. He's got the vision, he's got the athleticism to hurdle defenders, but he sometimes relies on that too much. Like, that's his one big playing card here, and if that's not on the table, there's not much else, and that will come with coaching from Juice Staley. But when he's in the open field and it's one-on-one, he can't go through defenders, he can't push tackles out of the way. Stiff arms are a little bit of a wild card given his ball security issues, which we're still going to touch on, and it's like sometimes he just tries to do too much when the ball is in his hands, and that can cost him valuable time in a split-second decision. However, let's just get onto ball security while we're here. He's not the securest pair of hands by any stretch of the imagination. I was watching the Wisconsin game and thought, wow, maybe it's not that big a deal, and then he fumbled on 3 consecutive touches. So it's one of those things where it's certainly not overblown. He lost 4 fumbles last year and somehow lost 3 in 2016, so it's something that's carried over through the years. Now, this has been a concern with other running backs. He just carries the ball way too far away from his chest, and NFL defenders are going to prey on that massively. So it's all about just clutching that ball tighter. Maybe Juice Staley can iron that into him. I have no doubts that he certainly can. And then there's the knock on pass blocking. Now, I know Michael Kist, for instance, has posted some, I would say, brilliant videos, but they're quite alarming, really, as to a running back and what he can do in pass protection. It's not exactly his strongest skill set, but there's a willingness to do so. These are all clips from the 4 games that I watched on Miles Sanders, and there was no real atrocious error. Sure, there were some lapses where he just doesn't have the power, but as someone that's got the attitude to drive his head into a block, maybe provide a nice chip before breaking out onto a route, he's got the mentality there. It's just ironing out the fundamentals, and hopefully that will come in time, the same way it did with Wendell Smallwood. And if Smallwood can pass block, then there is certainly hope for a second-round talent like Miles Sanders out of Penn State. It's not the end of the world. I do think this is a lot less concerning than the fumbling issue, which is much more of a force of habit, whereas this is something that's going to be a lot less used during his time at Penn State and something that's much more easily coded. Now, would Miles Sanders have been the running back I pick at 53? The answer would be no, because Darrell Henderson was still on the board, and I feel like that would have been a much better fit for this team. However, there's no real reason for fans to gripe at this pick. Miles Sanders was clearly the player the Eagles felt most comfortable in taking, because the entire draft board was on their lap when they were on the clock. There was no excuse to whiff on that pick, so if they were all in on Miles Sanders, which it certainly sounds like they were, that was the pick they made. Now, in terms of upside, I genuinely think that Sanders has a much higher one than some of the other backs in this class, and maybe, just maybe, even what we see out of someone like Darrell Henderson. As an out-of-the-gate running back that could complement Jordan Howard, I would have gone with Henderson straight away. Much more of a successor to fill his shoes once he's gone. But as someone with a long-term project that has the most complete fundamental skill set and an upside to really elevate himself at the next level, you can't really turn Sanders away. He's elusive, he's electric, he's got the explosive burst, and more importantly, the patience and vision to succeed at the NFL level. There are going to be minor gripes with his game, and those will definitely get coached out over time. But as someone that is prolific in the receiving game, that can get out and run routes, that is willing to pass block, that is electrifying between the tackles, and more importantly, has the speed to get to the corner, that's something that is vital in the Eagles' zonal rushing scheme. This is a schematic fit for the Eagles that, if given time to develop, could be one of the best, if not the best, running back from this class. But let me know what you think, guys. What do you think of the pick? Has this video changed your mind? Let me know down in the comments. And if you want to see more Eagles film rooms and more content from this channel, leave a like, hit subscribe, and don't forget to follow myself on Twitter at LiamJenkins21. Thank you so much for all of your support. It really does mean the world to me. And don't forget, you can get daily content from myself and all of our writers at phillysportsnetwork.com. So if you're a die-hard Philly sports fan, make this your go-to source. I promise you, you won't regret it.